U.S. investments into the Philippines have long been one of the key drivers of the nation's economy. They have played a role in its automotive sector, its energy sector, and its infrastructure sector. But most importantly, they have played an enormous role in its electronic manufacturing industry. This industry alone has created jobs for tens of thousands of people, paved the way for billions of dollars in investments and export revenues. There are a number of foreign investors in the Philippine electronic industry, whether it be coming from America, South Korea, Japan, or Taiwan. Out of all of these nations and companies, however, one has always reigned supreme: Texas Instruments. TI, as it is known, is amongst the leading foreign investors in the Philippines. This is evident from its continuous awards. As an economic zone member, they were awarded by the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, or PIZA, the Billionaires Award. Only a few companies have ever received this award due to its requirements. The requirement is that a company must be able to export goods or services worth over 2.5 billion US dollars. To show you how big this is, let's take a look at the entire export sector of the Philippines. In 2023, the Philippines had exported about $103 billion. A $2.5 billion export, in other words, is about 2.5% of the total exports of the Philippines. Texas Instruments, as one of the only few awardees, have done so much for the Philippines through the export sector. But if we actually take a look back in history, they have received this award as far back as 2013. Back then, the total exports of the Philippines was a mere $55 billion. TI's award showcases that they contributed 5% or more to the total export industry of the Philippines. So how important is TI to the Philippines? Well, they are very important, especially since the former American electronics giant Intel left the country. Let's take a glance at its history and what it has done for the Philippines. Texas Instruments landed their first investment into the Philippines in 1979. This was a time when the Philippines' electronic industry was still small. A few foreign investors were coming in from South Korea to Japan. TI, along with foreign investors, would help create their electronic manufacturing industry. Their investment was in Baguio City, where they opened up the country's first assembly and test facility. Why they chose this city was a story. They were attracted by its scenic beauty and the presence of educational institutions, which provided a steady supply of potential workers. TI valued Baguio's then robust infrastructure, including 3 main highways to Manila, ample water supply, and reliable power. But they were wrong. By the 1980s, infrastructure began to deteriorate. TI, however, responded immediately by investing in self-sufficiency. They installed a 10.5 megawatt generator, digging water wells, and securing liquid nitrogen storage. This ensured uninterrupted operations during typhoons and other disruptions. Despite these, they would continue to invest in their facility each year, amounting to millions of dollars. Their 20-hectare compound next to Baguio's single-runway airport would immediately become the Philippines' largest exporter. In 1993, they would ship nearly $500 million of chips and electronic parts to Asia, Europe, and the US. While the Philippines' electronic industry was still small compared with others in the region, it still accounted for nearly a third of Manila's total exports of over $11.4 billion. Moreover, TI's salary of chips assembled in Baguio increased to nearly 30% in 1993, and the company's officials expected similar growth in 1994. Their total overall investments by that year would amount to over $230 million, and staff numbering at 2,000. In the 1990s, TI Philippines would face its first biggest challenge in the Philippines: natural disasters. The Philippines is amongst the world's most prone to natural disasters. Every year, the archipelago nation experiences earthquakes, volcanic activities, and intensive typhoons. In the 1990s, Baguio City, the place where its facility is located, experienced a big earthquake. This crippled much of the city's infrastructure. The Baguio Export Processing Zone, which houses 13 companies, has suffered. The Asian business from Hong Kong reported that TI Philippines has lost the most. But TI Philippines head Don Mica said that they were happy to be in the Philippines. What TI had done was show the world that companies can overcome infrastructure challenges that have previously deterred potential investors from setting up operations in the Philippines. What they did was to leverage the country's highly skilled labor pool, which is its greatest competitive advantage. The firm has successfully established a productive base. Quote, "We hire college graduates to run our equipment. 50% of our production staff have college degrees," says Mr. Mica. Over the years, the workforce in Baguio has transitioned to producing increasingly complex products and even designing parts of chips and the manufacturing processes. Semiconductors produced here, including microprocessors and microcontrollers for television sets and computer disk drives, sell for $10 to $150 each. This is in stark contrast to the 30-cent to $1.50 products made at TI's Malaysian plant. But despite this, TI's Baguio facility, like other semiconductor plants in the Philippines, contributes only a seventh of the value of the finished chip. These plants focus on packaging and testing semiconductors, performing the final stages of chip production. Silicon wafers, already inscribed with circuitry, the core of the chip, are attached to copper alloy lead frames, which include the spindly legs that give the finished product an insect-like appearance. The tiny devices are then enclosed in black plastic and rigorously tested. Almost all the components are imported. By 1995, TI had stated their plans to invest an additional $105 to $120 million by the end of 1996. This would boost its capacity by 30%. And in the same year, TI would nearly reach an export value of over $1 billion, paving the way for the rise of the Philippine electronic manufacturing industry. By 1997, TI Philippines' export value had reached $1.4 billion and now has 2,150 employees. Their strategies helped the Philippine economy, one of which was to encourage its sub-suppliers to set up shop in the Philippines. Over 25% of their raw materials were produced locally. A few years later, by 2003, their total export value had doubled to over $3 billion. Their plant in the Philippines had now become the biggest company in the Philippines in terms of exports and revenue. Amongst its products, TI produces 80% of the digital signal processing chips used in Nokia mobile phones. In 2007, they would embark on their biggest project yet, a project that would expand their business into the Philippines with an investment price tag of over $1 billion. It was for a modern test and assembly site of semiconductor chips, which will be located in Clark Freeport Zone. The facility would open up later in 2009, and it would span 77,000 square meters and employ around 3,000 workers. The project was also expected to double TI's capacity in the region. 2 years later, the Philippines' electronic manufacturing industry would experience its biggest challenges, the exit of Intel. Intel Corporation, the first U.S. semiconductor firm to establish a facility in the Philippines, had closed its Cavite factory. It laid off over 1,800 workers and a loss of billions of dollars worth of exports. In 2008, Intel Philippines alone had amassed an export value of $5.8 billion, making it the largest contributor to Philippine Economic Zone exports. This was a tremendous challenge and an unfortunate downfall. After all, not only had Intel left the Philippines, they eventually expanded their investments in neighboring countries, such as Vietnam. It was as if they chose Vietnam over the Philippines, probably because Vietnam was a more favorable country to invest in, cheaper electricity, lower wages, and a more stable government. But analysts discuss the exit, citing that the Philippines was the second most expensive energy cost in Asia, just after Japan. With Intel gone, it is no wonder that TI had to step up. Hence, throughout the years, TI would embark on continued investments and continued growth. This growth is seen through the company's overall rise. Texas Instruments, the parent company, had seen tremendous growth from a company $30 billion in 2009 and rising to over $178 billion today. Intel, on the other hand, was hand-grown but struggled to compete, especially today. In 2009, it had a market cap of $100 billion. Today, it sits at just $130 billion, making Texas Instruments the larger company. Texas Instruments' latest investment was announced in August of 2023, where they committed over $1 billion in expansion projects for their 2 facilities. While the figures are no longer disclosed about TI Philippines' exports and revenues, they are still hailed as the leaders in the Philippine electronic manufacturing space. They have enabled job opportunities, technological advancements, and most importantly, fostered an innovation-first society in the Philippines. There is arguably no other company in the country that has done what TI did for the Philippines. Essentially, they are the most important foreign investment ever. But anyway, do let us know what you think. Thanks for watching.